Today we're going to take a look at OCI Bastion, which is a smart and secure way to manage access to your private resources that reside within Oracle Cloud infrastructure. OCI Bastion provides secure, temporary access to compute instances that reside within private subnets without requiring you to open up any public IP addresses or manage jump servers, meaning that you don't have to worry about exposing compute instances directly to the internet. It uses just-in-time session access along with policies and native identity integration to ensure that you stay in control. So whether you're a cloud engineer, network admin, or security architect, OCI Bastion solves a major pain point. You can connect to private VMs securely without the hassle of managing a jump server. And also, to add to this, every session is logged and auditable, giving you full visibility into what's going on within your environment. In this demonstration, we'll provide Bastion access to a VM instance that we have. So firstly, we'll take a look at our zipper demo VCN that we have. Within this VCN, we have a subnet called web servers that two web servers reside within. If we take a look at the IP addresses assigned within this subnet, we can see that web server 1 has a private IP address, and this is a web server that we'll be connecting to during this demonstration. If we now flip across and take a look at the compute instance directly, I'll just demonstrate that it doesn't have a public IP address, therefore it's not available directly over the internet. So if we select web server 1 and then select networking, you can see here that it has a single private IP address assigned to it with no public presence whatsoever. So what we need to do before we start to configure OCI Bastion is go into management within this VM instance and ensure that the Bastion plugin is enabled. So I'll go into Oracle Cloud Agent, do a search for Bastion, then select Enable next to the Bastion service. I typically reboot the VM instance after this to ensure that the service is provisioned and working correctly. The next thing that we need to do is to provision the Bastion. In order to do that, we go to Identity and Security, select Bastion, and then select Create Bastion. I'll give the Bastion an imaginative name of Bastion. We'll then select the virtual cloud network to place it in and also the subnet. In this specific case, I'm going to put it in the same subnet as the web server we want to connect to. We can then specify addresses that are allowed to connect to the Bastion host. I'm allowing any IP address on the internet, but you could restrict that by a specific or a block of IP addresses to make things slightly more secure. You can also specify the maximum time limit of a session, which by default is 3 hours. So once we've created the Bastion, it'll just take some time to finish its completion. What we can then look to do is to create a Bastion session, which will then enable us to connect from our local machine to the web server that resides within a private subnet. To do that, we select Create Session. For this specific case, we'll use a managed SSH session because we're using SSH to connect to a Linux instance. We need to provide the username to connect to and also the compute instance that we'll connect into. So in this case, web server 1. I will also use the web server key to authenticate, the SSH key to authenticate to the Bastion. And if we take a look at the advanced options, we can even restrict the session time down. So we've set it at a Bastion level, but you can also set it at a specific session level too. Now, the session is the process of being created. Once that's been completed, what we can then do is select the session that's been created and get access to the SSH command that we need to run in order to connect to the VM instance. So if we select View SSH command and we just copy that, what I can then do is open a terminal session and paste that command. There are two placeholders that need to be updated, which are the private keys. Firstly, to connect to the Bastion session, and secondly, connect to the VM instance. To keep things simple, I've used the same keys to connect to the Bastion and also the VM instance. So what you'll see here is I specify the web server 1 key, which will be used to connect not only to the web server, but also to the Bastion service too, just to keep things simple. You should have a key because you create one when you create VM instances. Now I'm connected to the machine. I'll just see what processes are running. We'll then run hostname just to prove that we're actually connected to web server 1. As we can see, we're definitely SSH'd into it, and I'll now exit. Now we've finished working on the specific VM instance, what we can actually do then is delete the session, which will block any future connections to this specific VM instance. We simply need to provide the session name just to confirm that we're deleting the correct session. And that's it. That's how you get access to a VM instance with a private IP address using OCI Bastion. Hopefully you found this video useful. Thanks for watching.